Okay, to make our blueberry sourdough discard waffles, we are going to start by weighing out butter and sugar in a pan. So we're going to put our pan on our scale, our kitchen scale, and make sure it's set to 0. You're going to need 50 grams of butter. So we're going to start by measuring that out. I'm at 23, so I need to at least double that. 44, let's just do another little sliver. 45, one more little sliver. Alright, that's as close as I'm going to get at 49 grams. And we are going to also do 50 grams of sugar. I am using monk fruit brown sugar, which is a 0-calorie sugar substitute. It is all natural from the monk fruit. And again, we're going to zero it out and add in until we get to 50 grams. Okay, I've gotten to 62. So I'm just going to take some of this away until we get back to 50. Let's as I said, 52. Let's just do a smidgen. Alright, got that to 51. I'm going to call that a win. I'm going to put it on the stove on the back burner, and we're just going to turn it on to medium, and you want to make sure that you're watching it the entire time. We are going to use just a little spatula to mix it when the time comes. While that is going on, we are going to use a separate bowl with a whisk to measure out our milk. I'm using oat milk, so this recipe is 100% dairy-free. I actually have a dairy allergy, so I stay away from that. We're going to use 180 grams of milk. I'm going to start with that. And you're just going to pour in, the closer you get, I'm just going to pour in a little bit less. 179, getting this close. If you go over by a gram, it's not a big deal. Okay, that says 180. I'm again going to zero it out. There are other things around my scale that are somehow throwing the weight off when I try to zero it out. So we're going to re-zero it out. And then we are going to add in 200 grams of sourdough discard. I am using a sourdough starter that had recently peaked, and we're just going to keep pouring it in until we get to the 200 grams, which it looks like it's going to be almost all of my sourdough. Alright, because I do not want to use all of it, I'm going to add another sourdough starter that I have going on. So I'm going to go grab that. Okay, this other sourdough that I have has been in the fridge. So I'm actually going to go a little bit higher because I needed like 50 more grams. I'm going to go a little bit above that, but not much. Just a little bit above. If you don't have a robust starter, then adding a little bit extra is helpful. Okay, so I did 40 extra grams on this. If you're baking, it's going to be a little bit different. You want to be a little bit closer to it and not go over quite as much, but for this is perfectly fine. And then I am going to add in my eggs. I have 2 eggs, and we don't need to weigh the eggs, so I'm not zeroing anything out at the moment. So we're going to go like this, and I'm checking on my brown sugar and butter that's melting very, very nicely. We're going to keep it going until everything kind of comes to a simmer and it browns. It's hard to see with brown sugar, if it's actually going to brown or not, but we're just gonna mix this up until it is incorporated. And then we have to wait on the butter mixture. So we're gonna do that. We're just gonna let this sit while we wait. Alright, so this is starting to simmer. Everything is all melted and it is incorporated. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a mix, and then I'm going to turn this off and we're going to incorporate it into our food. And you want to make sure that you're whisking. We don't want the eggs to curdle. I've never had that issue where they've done that, but it is a possibility that it could happen. I'm going to grab out another spatula so I can make sure that I get all of this sugar mixed in. You can see it kind of likes to stick to the bottom of everything. Alright, I'm going to set that in the sink and keep mixing. So now I'm going to add, before I move on to the dry ingredients, I'm going to add a little bit of some vanilla. I have this bourbon vanilla extract, and I got this at Trader Joe's, one of my favorite places to go. Just say measure with your heart. And we're going to mix again. And you can get a completely separate bowl and mix in the dry ingredients and do all of that. I'm not that person. You're not going to find me doing any of that. It is just a lot. So we're going to do this all in one batter, and we need 150 grams of flour. So we're going to zero out our scale and start measuring. Okay. Each of these scoops are about 40 grams, and I'm using 1/4 of a cup just to kind of be mindful of that. Okay, we're at 126, so we need 150. Okay. All right, perfect, 150. And I'm just going to leave it just like that. And then we need to add in 10 grams of baking powder. So I'm just going to gently add it in. We're at 2 right now. 7, 10, perfect. And then 5 grams of salt. You can do a little bit less or a little bit more depending on your preference. All right, that little scoop was 2, 3, and 5. All right, perfect. So now we're going to use our whisk to once again mix everything in and to incorporate it. You can take it off of the scale. Everything's just even. So I'm just going to continue to mix it in. Now I said I'm making blueberry waffles because I have these beautiful fresh blueberries that I got from the market to make a blueberry sourdough loaf the other day. And I used half of them, so I'm going to use the rest in this batter. I have them washed and setting off to the side. You can either do them on top, you can incorporate them into the entire batter, or you can just plop some in while your waffles are being made. And I think I'm just going to add them in while they're being made. So right now I have my waffle iron heating up. I have this olive oil nonstick cooking spray that I'm going to use. You can put butter on there. You can do a different type of cooking spray or oil. You're also going to need a timer, and we're going to set this timer to 2 minutes because that is how long it's going to take. You're going to need a 1/2 cup scoop, or you could do a 1/4 and scoop it twice. It's all going to depend on the size of your waffle iron, and this is no wait, so you don't have to wait for the batter. You don't have to let it sit for any certain amount of time. So I've got that going. I'm just going to plop in some of these beautiful blueberries. We're going to close the lid and start our 2-minute timer. Okay, so it's been 2 minutes, and look at that. I think adding the blueberries prevented it from being able to spread like it should, but we're going to go ahead and eat it anyways because it's blueberry. I'm just going to put some butter on there and add a little bit of some syrup just so we can try out our first. All right. It's very, very, very good. We're going to go ahead and make the rest of these. For the rest of the waffles, I ended up just putting the blueberries on the top. And look, this is a 3-stack. These waffles are absolutely wonderful. If you want to get an extra protein, you can add protein powder. I use some salted caramel collagen most of the time in my waffles, and they turn out delicious. Just a little butter and maple syrup, and you are ready to go. These are sure to be a crowd pleaser.